It's only week 8, and it's a cross-conference game, but the Buffalo Bills need to beat the Carolina Panthers on Sunday. Locked On Bills starts now.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Locked On Bills is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward, Mazda Move and Be Moved. Well, folks, welcome in. This is the last conversation that we're going to have before the Bills play the Panthers in Week 8. And we got some stuff to get into. Of course, I'll give you my 5 predictions. We'll talk to Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills about the injuries. But I want to start by just considering the importance of this game for both sides. And I also want to tell you a little bit about my personal story. As many know, I live in Charlotte, but I'm also from Buffalo. So I want to share a little of my story here in the opening segment. But we will start with just kind of considering how important this game is for both sides. You know, the Bills, we all know they've lost their last 2 games. They're coming off the bye. And there's a lot of questions about this team, and they've earned those questions. Defensively, can they stop the run? Can they play tighter in coverage? How will these reinforcements impact the results? Offensively, can Joe Brady get this unit out of a rut? Can they be more successful beating man coverage? Can they throw down the field? Can they stay committed to the elements that are best for them and not get sidetracked? There's a lot. We've talked about it, right? And I'm excited to see what this team has. You know, it's not hard to look at some of the issues here and acknowledge them, and I want to see what this team has in terms of fixing them. Should be the primary focus of this coaching staff and these players over the last couple of weeks. Good opportunity to zoom out and make some adjustments. Here's your first opportunity to show that to us. And look, I'm not a coach or a player, so I can look ahead. But next for the Bills is the Kansas City Chiefs. And they look good, right? Mahomes is dealing. That offense looks like a juggernaut. It's efficient running the football. The weapons are in place. I'm not saying they're a flawless team. There's questions, but they look good. And that's the Bills' next opponent. And the way that Mahomes is playing with those receivers, that'll be a problem for this Bills defense. And the Bills are 4-2. You don't handle this one, you're 4-3 going into Kansas City. Boy, you might be 4-4 and riding a 4-game losing streak. Now, the good news is the Bills are 8-0 out of the bye under Sean McDermott. They've never lost 3 in a row under Sean McDermott. So things would have to get a little sideways, but that's why we're going to play the games and find out. And so I'm anxious to see this team, what type of answers they have, how they respond. And I want this team to show me that they're dangerous. It's been a while since I felt that way. I know they're capable. They got issues like every team, but they're capable. And this should be a moment that this team starts to kind of put it together and we start to gain some confidence about what they have. I want to start to feel that turn on Sunday. Meanwhile, you have a Carolina Panthers team. Boy, they're excited. They're above 500 for the first time since 2021. And it's not like it's week 1 or 2. It's week 8, and they're above 500. They're 4-3. And they're in an NFC South that they probably feel pretty decent about. Of course, the class of the division is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but they're very banged up on the O-line, the D-line, receiver. The Falcons don't look like a juggernaut to me, and the Saints might be picking in the top 3. And you're talking about a team that just hasn't had a lot of success. Really, I mean, ever. I know the Panthers have had their moments as a franchise, but they've never in their history logged consecutive winning seasons, ever. And it's been especially tough lately under the Dave Tepper leadership. And not only has the team not played well, but there's been a lot of questionable moments from the ownership. Been some bad hires, been some bad personnel decisions, and it's been a tough stretch for Charlotte sports. Not that it's ever been great, but between the Hornets and the Panthers, the two professional teams here in town, not been a lot to be excited about. And this Panthers team has some momentum. They've won 4 out of 5, and obviously a big opportunity ahead for them. So I look at this as a pretty important game for both sides, and the Panthers are looking for signature wins, right? And every team is going to feel that way against the Bills. I know the Bills haven't won the Super Bowl, but they're still looked at as a really exceptional NFL team that if you beat them, it means something. And the Bills handed out signature wins to the Falcons and Patriots their last 2 games, and those teams celebrated those games pretty heavily, and they should. Those are good wins. Those are good wins for those teams. I'd like for the Bills to stop handing those out. I'm excited to see what this team has on Sunday. I want to be excited about it. I want to feel like this team is dangerous once again. And I think ultimately the way that this game plays out is very simple to me. Carolina has concerns about their pass defense against Buffalo's pass offense. And Buffalo has problems and concerns about their run defense against Carolina's run offense. Whichever side can mitigate those challenges will win this contest. And the best way for Buffalo to help its run defense is by scoring points and controlling the game script. The best way for Carolina to help their pass defense is by running the football and controlling the game script. Who can get that done? We'll find out. One thing I do want to take a moment is just kind of talk a little bit about my story, if that's okay. I get a lot of questions and comments about, well, you live in Charlotte, but you're a Bills fan, and you cover the Bills, but you don't live in Buffalo. What's that all about? So allow me to explain if I can. I was born in Buffalo at Children's Hospital. Probably a lot of people that are listening to this podcast right now are also born in Children's Hospital in Buffalo. I grew up on Grand Island, or at least I did until I was in the 4th grade, which was in 1995. And my family moved to Charlotte. My mom, my dad, I have 2 brothers and a sister. I have 2 older siblings. I have 1 brother. My sister is older than me, and I have a younger brother. My family moved, and I don't know, you're in 4th grade. It's not like you could stay behind. It was a pretty surprising thing that happened. And yeah, I moved with my family to Charlotte. And of course, we've been here ever since. And I love living in Charlotte. Met my wife. My brother met his wife. We have roots here. We love living here. I love living here. But I still have tons of family in Western New York, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. Shout out to my cousin Tom. And that's kind of how I got here. And it's been really kind of neat to see throughout the years the different connections between Buffalo and Charlotte. And obviously a lot of people have moved out of Buffalo and came to Charlotte. And there are tons of Bills fans here. There are tons, of Bills backers, restaurants and bars. And, if I wear a Bills hat to the grocery store, 2 or 3 people at least are going to say, "Go Bills" to me. You don't really feel like you're isolated away from Bills Mafia here in the Charlotte area. And so I don't know if there's a stat to back this up, but I feel like the highest concentration of Bills fans outside of Western New York is here in the Charlotte area. And so I know there's a lot of people excited about this one on Sunday. The secondary ticket market was just crazy to find tickets to this game. You're going to be spending way over $200 to sit in the upper deck for this game, just based on Panthers fans leveraging, the Bills market here. And, obviously the Panthers started 0-2 and they were feeling like it was going to be another lost season. There's been a lot of momentum since. And so, that'll probably inspire the Charlotte or the Carolina fan base a little bit. But bottom line here is there's a lot of Bills fans here in Charlotte. I know there's a lot of Bills fans traveling in. It should be a pretty significant contingency of Buffalo fans here at the stadium and throughout the town, and it should be a really fun weekend here in Charlotte. But just want to take a quick moment and explain to people, because I'm guessing there's a lot of people that don't even know that I was born in Buffalo or why I moved to Charlotte or anything like that. And so I'll say this: I love both places. I really do. I love living here. I love the roots that we have, the community that I live in. I think it's a great place to live. And I love Buffalo. I love the family that I have there. I love every time I'm there. I think it's a really special place, and there's a sense of community and togetherness in Western New York that is, I think, unlike anywhere I've ever been. And I really love that about the region. So if it's okay, I really love both places. But I will say this: I really love the Bills, and I really don't care about the Carolina Panthers or their success. They're just another team to me. And obviously, go Bills. You don't have to worry about me switching or converting. The red, white, and blue runs deep here in the Marino household, and that'll never change. So go Bills. Love living in Charlotte, and I hope to be able to connect with a lot of Bills fans here over the weekend. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk to Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills about the injuries, and boy, there's stuff to get into. We'll do that here next, folks. Be sure to stick with me. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and you're going to get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put $5 down, and if it hits, you're going to unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many different ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something riding on the action. So whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's sad. Software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. By uniting your employees, teams, and departments in one system, Rippling removes the bottlenecks, busy work, and silos your software created. It's seriously simple to use and gives companies one source of truth for their people, data, and everything they touch. Whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one or just fill the gaps in your software stack, Rippling can do it all. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. Learn more at rippling.com, rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. That's rippling.com/LockedOnNFL for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply. I'm joined now by Kyle Trimble. He's a doctor of physical therapy. He runs bangedupbills.com. You can follow him on social media at bangedupbills. Joins us each week to get ready for the upcoming Bills game from an injury perspective. And we are out of the bye, but we are not out of things to talk about. And so let's get into it. I'd love to start with Taylor Rapp, who didn't practice all week due to a knee injury. He's out, obviously, for Sunday. He's been placed on injured reserve. Sean McDermott saying that it's a knee injury that dates back to training camp. And the quote that stood out to me from Friday was, it got to the point where he just couldn't be himself out there. And Kyle, I am anxious to get your thoughts on this, but if I could just add something, I feel really disappointed by this, because if Taylor Rapp is unable to be himself, which was evident to the entire world, literally in game one against the Baltimore Ravens, what is he doing out there? I know this might be a soft benching, something like that, but I do take exception with somebody at some point sooner than right now realizing that this guy was nowhere near the player he's supposed to be and getting to the root of why that is, and then just continuing to put him out there to play 100% of the snaps in most games. I don't understand it, other than they just needed to buy some time to get Poyer ready or Hancock or whatever it is. But there's some things here that bother me. What doesn't bother me is that obviously Taylor Rapp is not okay and that he won't be in the lineup, which I think helps the Bills. But this has got some goofy smell to it.
Very much so. I'll push back on the soft benching part. I mean, I know he hasn't been playing well, but I feel like the NFL, everybody's adults. They know what the expectations are. If you're simply not good enough, the league's going to let you know that there. So I don't think that the coaching staff should be afraid to say, hey, you're simply not playing up to the level we need you to play at. If it's injury, fine. But if you're simply not good, there's somebody else that can step in and take your place there, whether it's Jordan Poyer, Jordan Hancock, free agent, whoever else there. So I don't think they need to protect his pride or whatever else, because I mean, it's the NFL quickly tells guys whether they're good or not there. So it's unfortunate. It is an injury. Sean McDermott did confirm that this dates back to training camp. Just a quick recap. He did have a sleeve on his right leg, though he does have a sleeve on his right leg often. But I assumed it was probably that side because he was out. He originally missed practice on August 3rd, returned on August 4th, and then they said he would be out for a little bit longer, and then returned on August 14th there. So we don't have an exact mechanism of injury, what happened, really when the injury happened, because we can sometimes see guys play, practice, and then they miss a day or two here, and then they miss longer time, and then they don't do as much as they need to, and then everything kind of comes to a head like it did here. So we don't know the exact injury, whether it's like a tendonitis thing. I assume at this point it's a chronic thing. We haven't seen a bracing or anything else on the knees that lead to us having some type of clues as to what's going on there. But he'll be out for the next 4 weeks. He can return as soon as week 12 if they feel that's appropriate. But you and I have discussed too, where, hey, is there something going on that he's not playing as well? We thought the hip or the back injury that he suffered in the playoffs last year, but we now know it's the knee, and it just, hopefully this allows him to get right, and we'll see what they do, whether it's Poyer or somebody else that gets the starting spot there.
To clarify my position, I don't deny that there is an injury. I believe that there is an injury. My issue is that it took 6 weeks of this guy struggling and playing every snap for somebody to say, you know what? Yeah, he's just not himself. Like, I saw that in week 1, and maybe you let it go a couple of games. They went 6. That's where I take my exception with kind of the overall status. And to me, that screams, well, we needed to get Poyer up to speed, or we weren't ready to put Hancock in there.
And
all right,
who knows what was going on? I mean, maybe it was. I mean, I know you said it wasn't great on week 1, and then maybe just progressed got worse. But you would think that somebody nipped this in the bud, or they're thinking maybe, hey, he's doing better today. Maybe he'll bounce back. I mean, you never want to pull the plug too soon on guys, but it is unfortunate that in retrospect it took 6 weeks to come to this decision. We should be putting him on the sideline and allow him to get healthy so he can play effectively rather than watching him struggle out there.
Bills have a couple of players ruled out for this game. Daquan Jones, a defensive tackle, popped the calf in warmups against the Falcons. Boy, that's annoying. And then Joshua Palmer, who looked like he was going to have a night against the Falcons and has a knee/ankle injury. Either player practiced all week. Both players ruled out for Sunday. But I guess the good news is neither placed on injured reserve. What can you tell us here?
So Jones, he was seen following the Falcons game when he had injured his calf in the pregame warmups. He was in a boot, and then I saw at practice photos or the game of the women's flag football game with the wives and girlfriends, and he was not wearing a boot. So that's positive to see. He's still week to week, and it's not surprising that he's out. You always hope with a bye that maybe sometimes they can avoid missing games because they have that week off where they're not doing anything. But this might be a more moderate grade strain. And we have seen guys go on injured reserve due to a calf strain. The only two I can find are Balin Spector and John Feliciano during the preseason. And then we had Cedric Van Prank-Granger basically miss. He did miss the entire training camp on PUP as he worked through his calf injury. So hopefully it's not as severe as any of those there, but we'll get a better timeline as to when he returns as soon as he starts to return to practice, which is hopefully next week. And then as for Palmer, when he was taken down, it looked like a hip drop tackle at the time. He looked to suffer what appeared to be a high ankle sprain, which is a pretty classic mechanism of that. And there was some attempt to him to try to come back, and he ultimately did not. But then he was listed with the knee as well there. That mechanism, the high ankle sprain with the foot going into eversion and dorsiflexion, and then putting a lot of stress on the inner portion of the knee, also just suggests that he suffered an MCL sprain, which would be pretty common. It's kind of like what joint is affected more, the ankle or the knee. In this case, it seems like both there. So both injuries could require injured reserve. They've discussed that. I don't think they're going to need both. High ankle sprains take between 2 or 3 games at most times. And then the knees, when we know it's confirmed MCL sprain, they've missed 2 or 3 games. So this might be like the Ed Oliver approach where they say, hey, we can probably beat the timeline for injury reserve. So let's just kind of kick this can down the road as far as we can. But if we know it's going to be more than 4 weeks, let's put them on IR. So hopefully both come up back soon because both have been valuable throughout the season.
Let's talk Dalton Kincaid. And obviously he didn't play against the Falcons. You felt that. And he was limited in practice, I think, for most of that week with the oblique, was in the red non-contact uniform. And then we come out of the bye. He's limited all week with the oblique, but I think the good news is he wasn't in that red non-contact uniform, which is, I guess, a sign of good there. The Panthers are not very good at defending tight ends. They're last in the league in EPA per target when the tight ends are targeted, and they're 22nd when slots are targeted. So I sure hope to see Kincaid out there on Sunday afternoon.
Listen, I've been proven wrong enough times when we see positive things like this and they hold guys out for, what seemed like unknown reasons. But with him not being in the red non-contact jersey this week, I'd be really surprised if he doesn't play. So I'm expecting him to suit up and get out there and contribute and hopefully have another strong game like he did before he suffered the injury.
Add it to your notes, your oblique notes, the red jersey versus the not jersey, right? It's another good data point as we try to learn these injuries.
It's not exact. It's not exact, but there is a correlation there. But we have seen guys where they've been red non-contact jerseys all week and then they end up playing. But it really comes down to situational stuff and then what's going on if they're younger. So there is a correlation. I just haven't seen how much of a correlation there is.
The Bills' starting linebackers, both of them, Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano, limited all week, questionable for the game. Of course, Milano has missed some time recently with the pec injury. Bernard ankle that forced him to come out of that Falcons game. I know the good news is Shaq Thompson looks really good, and so he'd probably handle at least one of those spots, but maybe not both because he's one person. So what's going on here with Milano and Bernard?
Milano, like we talked about previously, he had re-injured his right pectoral on the right side. He tried to do one-arm tackle in the Patriots game and then just suffered the injury and just kind of set himself back a little bit. Knowing he missed 2 games prior, and even though he's had the bye week, it's like I just let him sit another week and make sure he's fully good to go for Kansas City because that's where I feel like he'll really shine and do better with that. I mean, I can see him playing if Bernard doesn't go, but I just don't see the benefit of having Milano out there if he's not 100% or you risk re-injuring again. As for Bernard, he did suffer the right ankle injury right before halftime. This is the same ankle he's injured several times before in the Steelers playoff game and then midway through the season last year. At this point, it's a chronic ankle sprain, and what happens is he injures it. It needs some time to recover, but there's so much laxity in there already. They just tape it up and kind of get back up to speed there. So he'd be the only one that's truly 50-50 in my book right now because we haven't seen a whole lot of him moving around in practice, but I expect he plays just because he only missed 1 game last year with the same ankle injury. And then he kind of bounced back and, he's been moving around okay with it, but he'd be the only one that if I got that one wrong, I'd be like, okay, well, we didn't know everything about the injury.
Chronic ankle sprain?
Yeah, Leonard Fournette. If you think about how he had ankle sprains and he still managed to play through that and get things done there. So
this is just going to be part of the deal. Terrell Bernard's just going to all the time injure his ankle and he's going to miss time. That's something else, man.
If you go to my website and you look up his injury history, injuries are part of the Terrell Bernard baggage. I mean, he's played through so many injuries throughout his college and NFL career. Just you get a lot out of him, but you also deal with the injuries. I'm not saying he's turning into a Matt Milano, but he's been like that where it's like, hey, you got to take the good with the bad, and the bad is you're going to have some injuries. And what's funny is the ankle wasn't really a thing coming out of college. It's just something that just got significant, and maybe they eventually do surgery at some point, but I don't have any recorded documentation or anything that supports that he's had surgery yet at this point.
I used to play Madden a lot. Not recently. The last time I bought Madden, Peyton Hillis was on the cover. That was a Cleveland Browns running back for those who might not be acquainted. But one thing I did as soon as I fired up the PlayStation or the Sega or whatever the heck I had, we turned the injuries off. We turned them off. We're not dealing. How do we turn these injuries off, Dr. Kyle? I'm tired of them.
If you do, I'm not on here anymore, I guess, right?
I know. I literally just asked you. I said, you know what? Well, I guess that's the silver lining. I get to.
That'd be a good thing in this world. Yeah, that would be a good thing overall because that would mean the Bills could win the Super Bowl. So I'd be okay with that. I'll be the sacrificial lamb.
We're hungry for Maxwell Harrison, Dr. Kyle. I've watched the videos. He's looking pretty springy out there. Obviously, the window just opened. for him to practice. So he got a full week of practice limited practice. And that's the first time since July 29th. I know he's a rookie that hasn't practiced since July 29th, but we're hungry. We're hungry to see him. What do you think about him? I know that Sean McDermott was asked about it, and he said, we'll see for this week. I think that'd be a little early, but I'll defer to you.
It's funny how we'll see can be negative and positive at the same time. A few weeks
Right.
ago, McDermott was like, we'll see if he plays this season. And then a few weeks later, well, we'll see if he plays this week. Like, well, no, which is it? It's just funny how the tone with it that.
Yeah.
There. So I think that they keep him in the practice window for as long as possible, because keep in mind, he hasn't played in any real reps or whatever. Like he got all the OTAs. He got 2 days of partial practices because they would do that ramp up period during the training camp. So he hasn't gotten anything on the field, and it's one thing to do all the reps mentally and sit in the film room and just understand what the defense is doing, but to actually do the thing is just the biggest thing with that. And then Carl Jones of, I think it's Channel 4, I even asked him, what's the biggest thing that he's going to have an issue with, because he played quarterback for Syracuse, and he said it's just he said it's cliche, but it's the speed of the game. And it's going to be coming so fast at Jay. It takes time for every rookie that gets in the league for it to slow down. Maxwell Harrison's not going to be any different, even though he sat and watched 2 months of football. Until you're out there on the field in any sport, it's going to have to go down to your speed. You're going to have to interpret it there. So that's where I want to push back on saying, hey, that's great. He looks great. And, running around, he does. He looks awesome. He's still running around with the brace. He said he wants to get rid of the brace. I hope they do allow him to get rid of the brace, because it's going to be tough for a cornerback to play with a brace. That's a red flag for any wide receiver to kind of try to attack that side if they can. And on top of that too, it's let him practice and get up to speed there. Panthers could be a good opponent to allow him to get his feet wet, but then you got Kansas City next week, which I wouldn't want to expose my rookie cornerback to that offense, and then get him against Miami in week 10, or even if you want to activate him and then work him in other ways there. But I don't see the need to rush it, and if they were to activate him this weekend, it would go against everything Sean McDermott said, because he says 50% mental, and he said that it's they want to manage expectations. Why would you say all that stuff and say, hey, get out the rookie and see what you can do? I feel that would just crush anybody's confidence, especially if he gets smoked by I don't even know who on the
Ted
Panthers
McMillan, Xavier Liggett, Jalen Coker.
I would hate that. I mean, I would hate that for your rookie, and then he's turning into your Kyer Elam 2.0, because that's what Twitter is going to do. He's just the next Kyer. No, this is why you ease him in. I'm not expecting to see him until week 10, and if that. So I like what I'm seeing, but take your time.
Tend to agree with you, and I'm sure once he's activated, it'll be a platoon, and then if that goes well, more and more playing time. And there's still a lot of football left. If he doesn't get activated till week 10, there's still a lot of games left for him to ramp up and then, solidify himself and be ready to be an answer for this team down the stretch. So I'd be surprised if he went this week. But we've seen a lot of coaches this week wanting to maintain a competitive advantage, right? Aaron Glenn doesn't want to tell anybody who's starting at quarterback. I think there's another team with a quarterback situation that has been kind of we're not really going to tell you. So why not? Why not toy with them if you can? I would. If I was a head coach, people would hate me so much for the way I talked about injuries, because I would just say as little as I could and really not give anyone anything. So I certainly understand it, but it's frustrating from our perspective because we want to know.
Absolutely. One final question. Would you be better or worse than Bill Belichick?
I would try to be worse. I would. I would try to be worse than Bill Belichick. Yeah.
That's a high bar to clear.
It's a high bar to clear, but I'd say
whichever way you look at it, yeah.
People would hate me. So now I'd have to win. Now that's the other side. I'd have to be really good, because you can't have the shtick and then be taking L's all the time. So we'd want to make sure that we were a good football team, but I just wouldn't give anybody anything ever. So I get it.
I would hate you.
You would, but I'm not. I'm the host of this podcast, and I say everything I want all the time. Yep. And we get to do this every single week together. Dr. Kyle Trimble, thanks for hopping on here, my brother, and sharing your expertise.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joe, and go Bills.
This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is the return of so many players for this Bills defense, whether that's Larry Ogunjobi or Michael Hoyt or Maxwell Harrison being elevated to the practice window and certainly returning soon. Jordan Poyer probably back in the lineup for the Bills. These are players that can move this Bills defense forward and really evolve the scheme, right, in some ways that we want to see. So when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, folks, welcome back. Let's do some predictions here. I've got 5 of them for you. And before I do that, would like to remind you about thejoemarino.com. I've got a lot going on. There's community around this podcast. There's additional content that I have available to you. And if you go to thejoemarino.com, you can learn more about it. I have a Substack where I provide additional written and film content. I have a text club, which I'd love for you to be part of. We have a Discord channel where there's nearly 2,000 Bills fans in there. Become part of that community. It's a lot of fun as well. I have merch, so different hoodies and T-shirts and stuff that you can check out. So visit thejoemarino.com and see what we have going on. All right, let's do these predictions. I have 5 of them for you. And as always with my predictions, I try to tell a story. I try to be a little bit bold. I'm not just coming in here with softballs and saying, yeah, I think Josh Allen will complete 10 passes. That's not what we're doing. We're trying to tell a story and predict things that are a little bit bold. So let's do it. Number 1, I have the Bills rushing for 25 yards more than the Panthers defense allows so far this season. The Panthers have had some really good run defense games. They held Miami to like 19 yards. They held the Cowboys to almost no production. And so they have some good metrics with their run defense. They're only allowing 93 yards per game. So I said the Bills will rush for 25 yards more than the Panthers allow on average. So 25 plus 93 is 118. So put me down for 118 or more rushing yards. There's been so much conversation about the Panthers and their ability to run the football against the Bills defense that has struggled to stop the run. And there should be a lot of conversation about that. But what's lost in that entire conversation is that for as good as Carolina's rushing offense is, the Bills is better. The EPA per game per rush is better for the Bills. They're both really good, but the Bills are 2 and the Panthers are 4. So don't sleep on a Bills rushing offense that is a load to deal with. So I think they get 118 or more on the ground, which is 25 yards more than Carolina allows so far this year. Number 2, put me down for Dalton Kincaid hitting the over on his projection. Right now, if you go to FanDuel, they have him at over under 41.5 receiving yards. I think he comfortably hits the over here. We talked about this. The Panthers are last in the NFL in EPA per target when tight ends are targeted. They're 22nd when slots are targeted. Dalton Kincaid's the Bills' best pass catcher. I'm thinking he should be good to go for this game. And I feel like that's just the player that this passing offense needs to run through against a team that has really struggled to stop opposing tight ends. I think the passer rating when opposing tight ends are targeted for Carolina is like above 140. So I think this is a Kincaid game. Put me down for smashing the over on 41.5 receiving yards. Number 3, I think the Panthers rush for under 140 yards. That's what they average so far this year. 140 rushing yards per game. I think they come under that. Maybe not by much, but I think that there's a call for the Bills to answer here. Everybody knows they have struggled to stop the run, but they're getting some reinforcements. I hate that they don't have Daquan Jones. I really hate that. But Larry Ogunjobi's in the mix. Michael Hoyt. I think whether Terrell Bernard or Matt Milano can't go, I think the bottom line is you're going to get more Shaq Thompson, and I trust him pretty well to defend the run. I'm feeling like the Bills' run defense will be reasonably sound in this game. And I think one of the big differences in some of the production that the Bills have given up running the football this year that maybe Carolina can't replicate is that the other teams have gotten a lot of explosive runs, 15, 20, 80-yard runs, right? We've all seen it. These backs are very good after contact. They're physical. They're downhill, but they're not breakaway runners. And I also think not having Taylor Rapp in the lineup will help the Bills' run defense, especially when it comes to not allowing those long runs. So I think the Bills will give up some rushing production. I'm not sitting here saying that the Panthers come well under 140 yards, but I think they come under their average, and I think that the Bills' run defense will respond a little bit. Again, the explosive runs. The Panthers, for as good as they've been running the football, it's not a high percentage of explosive runs. And I think that there's some changes for the Bills defensively against an offense that doesn't have the explosive runs, where I think you'll contain them to the point where it won't be more than 140 yards. Number 4, I think the Bills are +2 in quarterback sacks this week. I think they will have 2 or more sacks registered than the Panthers. The Panthers metrically have the worst pass rush in the league, lowest pressure rate, lowest pressure rate over expectation. They're 26th in sack rate. And, they're down some edge rushers, but ultimately, I just don't know that they have anybody that dynamic off the edge that's really going to threaten the Bills' tackles. And, of course, Derek Brown's an absolute horse up front. That's a guy I'm worried about, but that's kind of like the only guy. And I think there's going to be some opportunities in the middle of the field for the Bills to attack. And ultimately, I think there's a good chance Josh Allen doesn't get sacked. But Andy Dalton, I think, is very sackable. And I like the return of Ogunjobi and Hoyt for this pass rush. So I think the Bills are +2 or better in sacks for this game. So we have the Bills rushing for 25 yards more than the Panthers allow so far this year, which would mean 118 or more rushing yards. Over on Kincaid's receiving yards at 41.5. The Panthers are under 140 rushing yards. The Bills are +2 in quarterback sacks registered. And then lastly, I do think the Bills win this game. I just think they got to have it. There's absolutely a path for Carolina. I can quickly identify that for you. This is a Bills team off the bye that's lost 2 in a row. They got to have it. They got to have it. And if they don't have it, and depending on what that looks like, boy, we might have some hard conversations next week. But I think the Bills take care of their business in this one. I'm not promising it's 40-10 or anything like that. It could be an absolute slobber knocker. I think the Bills come out on top. And that would make them 5-2 and then 9-0 out of the bye under Sean McDermott. And with that, the hay is in the barn, folks. We've done all we can. Hey, by the way, I'm going to be in attendance at this game, and Josh Allen has never lost a game that I've been at. And there's been some big ones. Kansas City in the year after 13 seconds when Taron Johnson picked off Mahomes at the end of the game. I was there for that. Packers primetime game, Sunday night game at Highmark. The Ravens game in week 1 this year, I was there for that. The SoFi massacre in week 1 when the Bills opened the season against the Rams, I was there for that. Game against Panthers in Buffalo a few years ago, a Houston game. Josh Allen has never lost when I'm there. So somebody send him a note, tell him I'll be there, and let's get this dub. All right, folks, that's it for today. Thanks for being here. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.